The film begins with introducing a man named Petr, who is practicing go-karting at a circuit. It is revealed that Petr is a member of a gang, but his gang is more focused on car theft, which they then resell. After finishing his go-kart practice, Petr is approached by his gang leader named Dragoslav. At that moment, Dragoslav orders Petr to steal a car that night because their gang has run out of stolen cars. Without hesitation, Petr immediately agrees to the gang leader's request. Before carrying out the theft, Petr invites two of his gang members, Baka and Dimitar, to help him with the theft. Once everyone is gathered, the three of them immediately go to a parking lot and start looking for the best car. After searching around the parking lot, Petr managed to find the most expensive car, so the three of them immediately broke into it. Once the car was successfully stolen, Petr and Baka would drive the car, while Dimitar would follow them from behind using Petr's previous car. Unfortunately, during the journey, the stolen car has a very advanced feature that suddenly causes it to move in reverse. As a result, Petr and Baka have to drive recklessly, running through all the red lights. Luckily, Petr has decent driving skills, so he can control the car and drive it to the headquarters, even while driving in reverse. Upon arrival, Baka and Dimitar complain to Petr because stealing that car almost endangered the three of them. But Petr reassures them that the car has a very high resale value, so Dragoslav will surely be very pleased. The next day, a car dealer is shown instructing his son to deliver a vintage Mercedes to the most powerful mafia boss in Serbia. The car dealer's son is Philip, and he immediately takes the car. The scene shifts to show Petr arguing with his girlfriend, Safija. Apparently, Safija is upset because Petr hasn't married her even after all this year, which Petr eventually promises that sooner or later he will marry her. Elsewhere, Petr's younger brother, Nenad, is seen arguing with their father. At that moment, Nenad wants to go to boxing practice, but his father forbids him, as he wants Nenad to become a businessman or manager, not a delinquent like Petr. Unfortunately, Nenad insists on going despite his father slapping him. Not long after, Petr arrives home and sees his father struggling to carry his belongings. However, Petr chooses to go inside and meet his mother rather than help him. It is revealed that Petr's relationship with his father is quite strained, as his father considers Petr to be a failed son, and thus he strongly dislikes him, while Petr's mother appears to be very fond of him. On the other hand, the most powerful mafia boss in Serbia, named Yanni, is seen. It is revealed that Yanni is known for being extremely ruthless, and he won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who dares to disrupt his business. At the moment, Yanni is waiting for the delivery of a vintage Mercedes from the car dealer, which is currently being brought by Philip. Unfortunately, Philip has yet to arrive, so Yanni keeps calling him. At the same time, Philip deliberately ignores Yanni's calls because he is having a brief meeting with a prostitute. After that, Philip immediately invites the prostitute to leave with him. Not long after, Petr is seen gathering at his headquarters, where Dragoslav shares that he will soon have a grandchild. Therefore, he wants to celebrate the good news with a glass of homemade liquor with his best men. Knowing this, Petr goes to a local shop to buy some snacks, but he accidentally spots the vintage Mercedes that was purchased by the mafia boss and is now being delivered by Philip. It turns out that before they were about to enjoy their time together, Philip and the woman stopped by the shop to buy contraceptives. Seeing the vintage Mercedes right in front of him, Petr's instincts to steal are immediately triggered, and he quickly takes the car. On his way, Petr calls Dragoslav and tells him that he has just acquired a very rare and vintage Mercedes. This car must be very expensive, and Petr plans to gift it to Dragoslav's soon-to-be-born grandchild. However, instead of being pleased, Dragoslav tells Petr that he should return the car because he has already found out that the Mercedes belongs to Yanni, the most powerful mafia boss in Serbia. Unfortunately, Petr, who has gone through the trouble of stealing the car, refuses and immediately hides the car in a safe location. Sometime later, Philip is now being interrogated and tortured by Yanni for his actions. Yanni then asks why Philip took so long and how the car ended up being stolen. In truth, Yanni doesn't care much about the car itself, but there is a valuable item belonging to Yanni inside the car, worth millions of dollars. Knowing this, Philip can only apologize, explaining that he had met a woman earlier. Because of this, Yanni mercilessly kills Philip immediately. After that, Yanni contacts a corrupt police chief named Stupar, who always works with him. Yanni then orders Stupar to capture the thief who has just stolen his car. Without much discussion, Stupar immediately agrees to the request. A few hours later, Stupar and several of his men arrive at a nightclub, where they meet Dimitar, a friend of Petar. Stupar, knowing that Dimitar is a gang member, tries to politely ask him who stole Yanni's car. However, Dimitar refuses to talk, so Stupar resorts to violence. Unable to withstand the torture, Dimitar finally reveals that the person who stole Yanni's car is Petar. The next day, Stupar leads a team to raid Petar's house, but Petar manages to escape quickly. Since Stupar failed to capture Petar, Yanni plans to send his men to catch the theft. However, Stupar disagrees because it could trigger a major commotion. Therefore, he comes up with the idea of making Petar a fugitive and spreading the news all over social media and TV. Stupar will also frame Petar as the murderer of Philip, even though he was killed by Yanni himself. Shortly after, all the TV news broadcasts report that Petar is now a fugitive, and he is also falsely accused of being Philip's murderer. Upon seeing the news, Dragoslav becomes worried about the safety of Petar, as he knows that Yanni is a very ruthless person. At the same time, Petar goes to meet Baka, who is also aware that Petar has become a fugitive. Initially, Baka is reluctant to help him because he had just gotten out of prison last month. However, Petar keeps pleading until Baka finally agrees to help him. Meanwhile, Yanni is shown meeting with Dragoslav. At that moment, it was revealed that they were once friends, but their relationship became strained when Yanni became a mafia boss. During their meeting, Yanni demands that Dragoslav take responsibility by returning his car and handing over Petar to him. However, Dragoslav swears to his former friend that all of this is beyond his control. Initially, Dragoslav tried to get Petar to return the car, but Petar remained stubborn and disappeared, becoming unreachable. Upon hearing this, Yanni refused to listen to any excuses and immediately threatened to kill Dragoslav's entire family if he didn't hand over Petar along with the car. Not wanting his family to become victims, Dragoslav had no choice but to agree to Yanni's demands. Not long after, Dragoslav went to Petar's hideout, but no one was there because Petar had already left with Baka. As a result, Dragoslav tried to send a message and call him. Unfortunately, Petar ignored the calls. It turns out that Petar and Baka were visiting Dimitar's house to ask who had informed the police about the theft. Unfortunately, Dimitar pretended not to know, even though he was the one who told everything. After that, Petar threatened Dimitar with his gun, but Dimitar still refused to be honest. In the end, Petar and Baka decided to leave after not getting any information. Shortly after that, Petar and Baka visited Nenad, who was training in boxing. Petar then asked Nenad to drive the stolen Mercedes while he and Baka drove another car. Petar did this to deceive the police who were searching for him. Unbeknownst to him, Petar was being watched from outside by several of Yanni's men, which led to a chase. Eventually, Petar, Baka, and Nenad managed to escape from Yanni's men. Upon arriving at the hideout, Petar asked Nenad to go home because the place was not safe for him. Initially, Nenad refused because he wanted to stay with him, but Petar, not wanting to involve his younger brother, insisted that he had to leave. 30 minutes later, Petar and Baka inspect the stolen Mercedes. At that moment, they are shocked to find that the Mercedes contains several kilos of illegal goods belonging to Yanni. Because of this, Petar finally realizes why Yanni went to such lengths to deploy all his forces and the police, as it wasn't the car he was after, but the illegal goods inside. That night, Petar and Baka meet with Dragoslav, who pleads with Petar to return Yanni's car. Dragoslav also reveals that Yanni had ordered him to capture him. However, since Dragoslav considers Petar like his own son, he can't bring himself to do it. Hearing all of this, Petar apologizes, saying that this time he must refuse Dragoslav's orders, as Petar plans to demand a ransom from Yanni, and only then will he return the car. In the end, Dragoslav is left speechless and can only ask Petar to be careful. After Dragoslav leaves, Petar contacts Yanni and says that he will return the car as long as he pays a ransom of 2 million. Yanni responds that this is impossible, as Petar's girlfriend, Safija, has already been captured by Stupar, the corrupt police chief. As the result, Yanni immediately threatens to kill Safija if the car isn't returned by tomorrow night. Hearing this, Petar proposes a new deal, where he will exchange the car for his girlfriend. After Petar sends the location, Yanni and his men are seen preparing to leave. At the same time, Stupar, the corrupt police chief, suddenly stops Yanni and suggests that he handle the situation instead. This time, Yanni refuses, as Stupar has repeatedly failed to capture Petr over the past few days. Eventually, Yanni trusts his own men more than a corrupt cop like Stupar. After Yanni left, Stupar, feeling hurt by his words, decided to approach Dragoslav and propose that they work together to trap Yanni. Dragoslav, who also felt betrayed by Yanni, immediately agreed to the plan. The next day, Petr and Baka are already at the meeting location with Yanni. However, Yanni doesn't show up and instead sends his right-hand man, Milos, along with several of his men. Seeing this, Petr demands that they release his girlfriend before he returns the car. Unfortunately, Milos refuses, leading to a shootout. Outnumbered, Petr and Baka decide to flee while taking the stolen car with them. Unfortunately, Baka is shot, and Petr quickly takes him to the hospital. In the late afternoon, Milos and his men are seen arriving at Petr's house. At that moment, they immediately start harming Nenad, his father, and his mother. After that, Milos demands that Petr's mother persuade Petr to surrender to Yanni. If that fails, Milos promises to return and kill them all. On the other hand, Petr, who had just arrived at his hideout, was shocked to find his friend Dimitar lifeless upon entering. Instantly, Petr realized that this must be Yanni's doing, making the hideout no longer safe. Therefore, he quickly decided to leave immediately. On the way, Petr receives a call from his mother, who tells him that they were just threatened by Yanni's men. Crying, his mother pleads with Petr to surrender and not repeat his actions. Hearing his mother's fear, Petr promises to resolve the issue as quickly as possible before pulls over to the side of the road to calm his mind. Shortly after, Petr receives a call from Stupar, who reveals that Safija is not in Yanni's custody but is actually being held by him at the police station. Stupar also informs Petr that his girlfriend is pregnant, and if Petr wants her to be freed, he must meet him immediately. Without saying much, Petr rushes to meet Stupar at the agreed location. On the way, Petr feels a mix of happiness, knowing he will soon be a father, and sadness over the current situation, as his family and himself are still under threat. As a result, Petr becomes lost in thought and nearly crashes his car. 30 minutes later, Stupar is about to get into his car. When he gets inside, he finds Petr already there, holding a gun to him. At that moment, Petr demands that Stupar release his girlfriend immediately. But Stupar tries to calm Petr first, saying that he is now on his side. Hearing this, Petr orders Stupar to get out of the car and explain what he meant earlier. Stupar then explains that he is now working with Dragoslav to take down Yanni. If Petr joins them, Stupar promises to free his girlfriend, but only after everything is over. With no other option, Petr agrees to join Stupar. However, he needs to go home first to reassure his mother and retrieve his weapons. Sometime later, Petr arrives at the parking lot of his house, but chooses not to go inside, instead sending greetings to his mother through Nenad. Petr also instructs Nenad to bring him his weapons from his room. When Nenad delivers the weapons to Petr, they are caught by their father. However, this time their father doesn't get angry. Instead, he pleads with Petr to resolve the situation quickly. Additionally, their father also apologizes for never liking Petr all this time. After that, Petr says goodbye, as he plans to settle everything with Yanni that very night. On the other side, Yanni is seen attending a meeting with other mafia members. Suddenly, he receives news from his men that Petr has been captured by Stupar and is now at his headquarters. Knowing this, Yanni quickly heads to the headquarters to confront Petr. Unbeknownst to Yanni, this is all part of a scheme devised by Petr and Stupar to trap him. Upon arrival, Yanni sees Petr with his hands cuffed, pretending to apologize. At that moment, Yanni quickly asks where his Mercedes is, where Petr replies that the car is hidden in a certain location and he can take Yanni there. In short, Petr lured Yanni and his men to the location where the car was stored. At the same time, Yanni was delighted to have his car back because it contained several kilos of illegal goods. However, when Yanni opened the trunk, he was suddenly attacked by Dragoslav's and Stupar's men, allowing Petr to defeat Yanni and all of his henchmen. The next day, Petr visits Dragoslav to express his gratitude and apologize. Dragoslav, who is happy because his grandchild has just been born, forgives Petter. After that, Petter goes to the police station to meet Stupar and arrange for the release of his girlfriend, who is still in custody. When he arrives, Stupar tells him that Safija can be released immediately, but Petter must be detained for 3 months since his name is already listed as a fugitive. In the end, Petter agrees to accept the punishment as long as he is allowed to hug his girlfriend first. Petter then asks his girlfriend to take good care of their baby, and he promises to marry her as soon as he is free. While crying, Safija says that she will wait for Petter no matter what. Moral lesson from the story: if you plan to steal a car, make sure it doesn't drive itself in reverse, or you might end up with a police chase and a surprise baby all at once. Remember, if you're looking for excitement, maybe try go-karting instead.